Church in the MetaVerse. What opportunities are there in virtual reality for the church? How close should we be paying attention to this new technology? We'll talk about it today.
This is the definitive podcast for helping you plan, create, and execute dynamic worship experiences at your church. Useful, practical content in the areas of production, worship, communications, first impressions, and more. This is Making Sunday Happen.
Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. So today we're going to be diving into the world of virtual reality. Now, I've done a couple of episodes on VR over the past year, one with two pastors, Jason Poling and Gerald Faulkner, and their experience learning and preaching in VR. Another episode with DJ Soto, who is the pastor of arguably the largest and most influential church in the virtual space, VR Church. In fact, I want to read a comment that we got from a viewer on our episode with DJ. This was really encouraging to hear. This is from MetaVerse, Ohio. He writes, this is on YouTube, comment on YouTube. He writes, at this point, I'm a VR native with over 1,000 hours in a couple of headsets. After seeing your introduction, I really appreciated that you did your homework on this. So many people try to comment or criticize what is happening in VR without having experienced it at all, or only having spent 15 minutes in one of the less interesting or polished experiences. But you spent enough time in there to play some of the more popular games and also have some real social experiences. Consequently, you know what you're talking about, and it shows. Great interview. Well done. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate that feedback. I really am trying to do my homework, especially when it comes to VR, because it is a new world as of probably a year or two ago. I've of course known about VR, but really diving into it, really researching it and what it means for the church probably the last couple of years. So thank you very much. I appreciate that comment. Keep them coming in, by the way. My email is carl@1230.media. You can also reach out on our website or on social media. We would love to hear you. We do read the comments. We do read your feedback, and it really does matter, and we appreciate it. So thank you very much. I hope that we hope and pray that this podcast is beneficial, and the interviews are, and all of that. So thank you for being on the journey with us. Well, today I'm talking with my friend Jeff Reed. Jeff has written a brand new book on VR called VR and the MetaVerse Church. We're going to define a lot of terms for you today. So if you are a beginner still learning about church in the metaverse, we're going to really try hard not to lose you or go over your head. So we're going to keep things real simple so that you can learn about this world and also consider if it's something for your church to consider diving into. This is kind of like Church Online was a few years ago, where VR is in the infant stage. Only a few churches really diving into what church looks like in the virtual reality space. But this could definitely be the future of multiple industries. Church being one of them, gaming being one of them, education being one of them, medical being one of them. It's a really cool, if you haven't gotten a VR headset, I would strongly encourage you to think about it. It's about $400 on Amazon. And I've been racking up some new games and really playing some new things and really investigating what it looks like. The depth, the graphics, the immersive experiences, just pretty amazing. Well, also, since interviewing Jeff, one of the major communities that we discussed that a lot of VR churches meet within, it's called Altspace VR, is completely shutting down. So you'll hear us talking about Altspace, but they will be no more as of the airing of this podcast, which means that the other communities or worlds is where churches will move to. So you'll hear us talk about VR chat. That is where the mission field is, definitely. Then there are other worlds like Rec Room, Meta Horizons, and Big Screen, where churches will have to move to. So it's going to be an interesting move over this next year as Altspace VR is shutting down completely. So we're going to be diving in a lot with Jeff today, very beginner level, and then we'll kind of hit on some deeper topics a little bit. But this might be an education for you learning about VR. That's fine. If you are a veteran, you'll get some new information as well. So hopefully, either way, you'll learn a lot today, and we'll give you some things for your church to consider. All right, we'll jump right in with Jeff Reed right after this. At 1230 Media, we want to help you make Sunday happen. That's why we're creating hundreds of mini-movies for you to download straight to your presentation software to use in your worship experiences. These are short videos that can be used as worship service openers, sermon bumpers, or transitional elements. We have videos for every holiday. We have videos on books of the Bible, baptism, communion, and more. All to help you level up your worship experience and help people encounter Jesus. It's all in the library at 1230.media. That's 1230.media. Hey guys, today I welcome back to the show Jeff Reed. Jeff has 20 years of experience serving the church in the digital realm. His new book is called VR and the MetaVerse Church, How God is Moving in This Virtual Yet Quite Real Reality. Jeff, welcome back, man. Thanks for hanging out.
Hey, Carl, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, and please forgive my cold. I've been down for about a week, so you're getting me as I'm getting back in the saddle.
I mean, you're welcome to come down here to Miami. It's like, 80 degrees and sunny, and it just bakes all that cold germs out of you.
I know, man. Everybody's moving to Florida. You're like the, paradise down there. Awesome. Well, man, tell me about the book. When did you decide to write it? We were talking a little bit before we started recording of just how glad I am that somebody's finally kind of putting this to paper and writing the book on it. So how did it come about for you? When did you decide to write it?
About a year, I guess maybe December 2021, I was approached by Leadership Network to become the director of MetaVerse Church Next. Basically, Leadership Network's like, hey, we just want you to make a lot of noise about what the metaverse and what it can be for the church. And, I always love talking about controversial things. And so quickly started, digging in, and already had relationships with Jason Poling, DJ Soto, all these guys, VR Tiger, all these guys that are in Stewart, all these guys that are in the metaverse.
Yep.
And, knew their stories, got to dig in more interviews, meet more of their people, really discover what's happening ministry wise. And then honestly, it's like the book wrote itself as really just started to document through blogs and podcasts and streams. At some point I looked over and I was like, man, all this content, it's a book. And so created it. And it was honestly, it was supposed to be like a little lead magnet thing. And like I said, I just kept putting the stories together that I had heard and the people that I had met, and all of a sudden it was like, oh my gosh, this is a book. And so love that it got published, and love that people like you are digging into it and really discovering what is happening in the MetaVerse Church.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this new medium. I don't think people need to fluff it off so quickly. I've been diving in a lot the last 6-8 months into metaverse stuff, and interviewed Jason and DJ. I had them on and just kind of talking through stuff. So I've done a couple of episodes on kind of an intro, and I want to hit on that again. So because I just want people, it's so new, I want people to understand the terms and what we're talking about. So let's kind of start with this. Why does the church need the metaverse? And vice versa. Why should the church move into this medium and even care about it?
Yeah, I love it. The metaverse is the future. Now, virtual reality, the technology that's readily available right now of the metaverse, if I'm honest, it's probably the least successful technology that's coming out with this suite. Now, I don't mean any offense to the virtual reality people, but you're not going to see 100% adoption rate of the virtual reality technology. However, it is a indicator. It's priming the pump. It's a prerequisite for what's coming down the road. Right here in the US right now, I think we've got close to 20%, maybe 17, 18% adoption rate into virtual reality. The fact is that nobody likes the way that they look wearing those goggles. And so VR as into itself.
What, I don't look good with this?
Yeah, I mean, listen, Carl, you look great at all times, man. So forgive me. I was talking about everybody.
I knew you
else
weren't talking about me, because I'll put my set on right now. I'm just kidding. Keep going.
But so listen, it's not about VR, but it's about what VR is bringing as we get more into augmented reality, as blockchain and crypto and DAOs settle into what it's going to be, as artificial intelligence gets more infused into our software foundations. And so what's happening is there's a cultural shift that's coming as a result of this technology. And we're even looking at like a lot of it. We talk about it in the book. A lot of these, we as a culture no longer trust organizations, institutions, and corporations. I mean, you can look at Elon Musk, how he became the savior to the GOAT of Twitter virtually overnight because of some missteps he makes. Nobody trusts Zuckerberg with Twitter. Google, we're kind of suspect of. Time will tell with them. But the fact is that it's not about corporations. It's about individuals. And this is part of this metaversal cultural shift that we're seeing, because the metaverse technology in itself is bringing out a lot of these cultural shifts. The church can get into the metaverse and can change lives. It's one of the greatest mission fields on the planet today. Virtual reality is. It's unbelievable the conversations you can have about Jesus in virtual reality. But the church also needs to pay attention to what the effect of the metaverse is on culture, because what's happening as a result of the metaverse is that people don't trust institutions and corporations. And in some cases, they don't trust the church. And so what the future of ministry looks like is going to be impacted by what is happening in the metaverse today.
So let's walk people through kind of the versions of the web, if people don't know. So you got 1.0, 2.0, 3, and we're moving into 3.0. So kind of walk me through briefly what those are. Define those for me.
Sure. This is way back. What's interesting, I had a pastor. I was trying to get a pastor to join me in a learning community. And he said to me, Jeff, we can't even do Web 2.0 well. You want me to jump all the way up to Web 3? And so totally respect that. Now, Web 1, it's all historical over maybe the past 20 years plus or minus. So Web 1 was really, you remember this back in the 90s when everybody was trying to get every book on the internet, every magazine on the internet. Everybody was building websites, www, World Wide Web. Remember that, like, your search engine was Ask Jeeves. Your Netscape browser was was your browser of choice. It's been a minute since Netscape was like uttered in public, but that was the World Wide Web. That was Web 1, when we were moving everything into a digital medium. Now, Web 2 came, and that was 90s, early 2000s, maybe. Ironically, that was when I was in college, and I never once checked out a book from the college library. I got a college degree with never once actually checking out a book. I'm not bragging, but it's true. Web 2 was probably more around 2004, 2005. Web 2 is where we get more into social media, more community-based things. This is when, like, Twitter was healthy. When Facebook, we actually liked each other. And so you're seeing some of that social media community engaging in that dialogue that's happening, where it wasn't about knowledge, it was about the community aspects. I could jump in a Zoom call, an audio call, a video call, and meet and dialogue with people across the planet. You're engaging in community. And so that was, like I said, 2004, 2005 to probably 2019, 2020, which now we're getting into what's known as Web 3, which is the age of experiences. This is where the metaverse kicks in with virtual reality, with augmented reality, with our artificial intelligence, blockchain, crypto, DAOs, like that, with this new metaverse technology suite. So essentially, with augmented reality, when I look at the future of metaverse, augmented or mixed reality is what I see, and this is what Apple and this is working on right now, and this is really the thing that Meta is working on right now, and a lot of companies that blends together virtual reality with augmented reality, and they call it mixed. Now, the problem with virtual reality is that you're separated from the physical world. Like I said, people don't like wearing the headsets. They don't like the way they look. Plus, you're not able to connect with the things around you. Now, for creating community and engaging in these new communities, virtual reality is incredible. But where you're going to see the adoption rate blow through the roof is this augmented or this mixed reality. Apple has already said that the business, this is in Business Insider, it was a leak a while back. But someone from Apple's business department has said that this device, the iPhone, won't exist in 10 years, that this device will be replaced entirely by the glasses. There are billions of these devices right now on the planet, and within a decade, it's now going to be the Apple Glass, the augmented mixed reality. Like, that's the future of technology. And what that means for the church and community, man, that's going to be mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how like we're living in the future. Definitely, if you watched a sci-fi movie, 20 years ago, this is the kind of stuff that it's the Blade Runner kind of thing going on. I remember the first time I got a headset, the first Sunday I went to VR Church. I went to DJ's church and a couple others, but I met a gentleman that was 80 years old. And he took me into his own portal, his own room in alt space, which we'll talk about what that means, and introduced me to himself, had a camera on himself, showed me him, lifting the glasses and waving at me. And he's an 80-year-old gentleman with his wife, sits in a recliner and wears the glasses and ministers online. You might know who he is Mr. Pete online in all these churches. But one thing that just struck me is I dove right into a relationship the first day I was there. And this is a gentleman who could not, he was not bedridden, but was just not able to get out. And he was connecting and ministering. And it was very real community with a very real person. Yeah. So I don't think we need to fluff it off so quickly. Okay, you blew through a few terms that I want to define for people just kind of on an elementary level, and that is you mentioned blockchain, cryptocurrency. Maybe we can hit on NFTs. Kind of define some of those for me.
Yeah, so blockchain is a software, a technology that's a digital ledger, which means that if things are purchased, if transactions happen in a blockchain, there is a permanent record of what's happening. Now, blockchain as a technology is incredibly solid. The use cases of this are growing. It's not quite mainstream, I would suggest, probably at this point, but the foundation of it, the tipping point, is very much ahead, and it's tracking very well. You got to realize that blockchain in itself basically empowers individuals with this, with the ability of corporations. Like, we have the ability as an individual through blockchain technology, through DAOs, to almost operate like a corporation. This is the grounding of, hey, we don't trust organizations, and this blockchain technology really empowers individuals with that same power that a major corporation would have. And so even when we get into cryptocurrencies, this is where you're looking at the cryptocurrencies exist foundationally because we do not trust governments. And rather than using the dollar or rather than using any other national currency, we've created our own currency, which exists as a in a digital space as part of the blockchain. And so we're creating this new world that ties into physical, that has value with it. Now, NFTs are opportunities to buy things on the blockchain utilizing cryptocurrencies. Now, once again, this is going to revolutionize where we're going. But right now, the adoption rate is very low on it, or not at the tipping point to say that it would be mainstream. From a church standpoint, it was funny. Actually, I was talking with a guy the other day about all this stuff, and he was actually it was my executive pastor. He is a strong supporter of blockchain crypto DAOs. Like he's an NFT guy, and I started talking about what a DAO is, a decentralized autonomous organization, an organization that's created by individuals, that runs on the blockchain, that's funded by crypto, but utilizes smart contracts as agreements within people on how to operate. Now, when actually I look at what a DAO is, I actually see that being the future of the church. I see more of a bivocational movement of the church for the future coming out of these DAOs. It's much simpler to manage. It can still be grounded in nonprofit. And so like you're still able to operate with the nonprofit status. Actually, as a guinea pig, we're in the process right now. I've got a meeting on it tomorrow. We're in the process of launching a DAO right now for one of the nonprofits that I'm working with, just to try to experiment to see what it would look like and what maybe the future of the church could be in the space. So it's a lesser known, or it's a lesser realized technology, but it's one that is incredibly powerful given the right circumstances. And what's happening is that if I were to say the average church, when they hear cryptocurrency and when they hear NFTs, they glaze over. The average pastor, I've had pastors tell me, Jeff, I don't understand it. Just tell me how to do it. Right. And so, to be honest, we've adopted a different language centered around it. Like it's more about missional imagination and doing good within the community, serving people, training leaders. Like we're having to put more missional context in some of this technology because church leaders don't understand the technology, but they do understand, the good that it could be as a result of it.
Right. And that's why I kind of want to continue to define terms, because when I talk to pastors, it's that too. I have no idea what you're talking about. And I talked to DJ about this, it's amazing how they kind of fluff it off until you're like, hang on, sit down, wear the headset. I'm going to show you this. And once they experience it, it's a whole new thing. Oh, now I'm seeing what's possible here, especially with, and we'll talk about this more in a minute, the immersive environments of church, where it's an avatar preaching or teaching with a small group, and it's an immersive experience. I think that pastors can see that pretty immediately what some of the capability is. All right, so let me ask you this, and then I want to get into the communities or worlds that you can get into. Okay, so I'll start with this. Are there multiple metaverses? One metaverse or multiple metaverses? Yeah,
man, it depends upon who you ask. I would say there's one metaverse with multiple worlds attached to it.
I like that better too.
That's the philosophy I subscribe to. Somebody else would disagree with me, and it's
would Facebook's though. I mean, if I have an Oculus, so I have a Quest 2, so this would be Facebook's or Meta's metaverse. Like I can only get stuff from the Oculus store from Meta. So would that be considered Meta's metaverse? No, the Google
the reason I would disagree is that, I mean, like, think of it like the World Wide Web. I can access the World Wide Web from my Apple phone or from a Google Android. And I'm accessing the same website. I can access, let's do YouTube. I can access YouTube, watch the same videos, and I can comment and engage back and forth with each other. Now, Facebook's interesting because Facebook's hardware and universes and App Store. And so like they're they're in multiple layers, which can confuse some things. But the different worlds that exist, like alt space, like Rec Room, like VR chat, we can detail these later. But that can be accessible regardless of the brand on the hardware. And and Apple, I am sure an Apple headset is going to interact with that in the same way that a Facebook, that the same way that an HTC, any of these other brands that are out there are going to interact with it. And even like software, you don't even need headsets to get into alt space. You can do it from a computer. So, it's the idea is there's one metaverse and then there's different parts and worlds in there. People may make comments.
I think it does depend on who you talk to, what answer you get. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Keep going.
No, you're beautiful. We can move.
Oh, stop. All right, so let's hit on these worlds. So if it's one metaverse, then I'm going to access a world through an app. Okay, so I put the headset on, I go to an app, and it enters me into a world. Okay, so there's different worlds I can go into, or different apps, I guess I could go into, that would be communities. Okay, so let's detail them. Alt space. And you just mentioned them, but let's dive into each. Alt space, Rec Room, VR chat, Meta Horizons, big screen. Kind of walk me through a couple of those.
Yeah, sure. So alt space is owned by Microsoft, and so it's I call it virtual reality on training wheels. It's very safe. It's very comfortable. There's a strong level of parental controls. You're going to have conversations with people 18 to 85 in alt space. The typical church starts in alt space because it's so easy. Like it's literally training wheels version of virtual reality. Now we start to explore some other areas. Rec Room is more aimed at a younger generation, teens and 20s, because the majority of their users are utilizing video game virtual reality, like on Xbox and PlayStation VR. So you're more likely to get F-bombed by a middle schooler in Rec Room than you are in any other platform. Like it skews younger in audience. Now there's ministry purpose in this world. Like there's the benefit to do ministry, to engage with people, but you got to understand that's where you're walking into. VR chat is probably the most aggressive, the most liberal of all of the virtual reality environments, whereas AltSpace VR is owned by Microsoft. I'm not even sure there is an owner of AltSpace. I think it's of VR chat. It's completely decentralized, and as a result of it, you're more likely to see people walking around naked avatars, scantily clad. There really is no parental controls on this thing, and it's the I jokingly call it the red light district. DJ calls it the wild wild west. Like it's anything goes in these spaces, and I told the story in the book. I met a girl in physical space who claims to be raped. Who claims to have been raped in VR chat. Now, how somebody's raped in virtual reality, just, hit the reset button on the glasses, turn it off. For whatever reason, like something happened to this woman, this girl, 20-something-year-old, 5 years early in her life. And it was so damaging that even hearing the word VR chat caused a physical twitch to happen with this girl. And so there's a lot of psychological concerns, mental health. Where are we going with this? There's some things that open up in some of these spaces. It's estimated in VR chat that maybe 40 to 50% of people are having virtual sex in private rooms. I can tell you, running a virtual reality bar in VR chat is actually $1 million annual business membership, because things are happening in private rooms that we don't want to talk about. Like there's some legitimacy to the darkness and Satan's claim in virtual reality. And we're seeing a lot of it in VR chat, which, by the way, is the most popular of all the established worlds right now. But that doesn't mean that we, the church, should run away from those situations. We have to run into it. And we need to get more people doing ministry in that space. For what it's worth, the average church that is doing ministry in virtual reality is hanging out in the safe worlds of AltSpace VR. And that's not inherently bad. But we do need more churches to step into some of these dark places and to do more ministry as they grow more comfortable in doing ministry and what it means to be in those spaces.
Yeah, and you don't have to have VR chat. It's like I guess you could visualize an app, your app library. You don't have to have VR chat in your VR library if you don't want to. You don't have to go into that world if you don't want to. But yeah, alt space. I love alt space because there are features where you can mute somebody, you can block them so that poof, they're gone. Out of your world, out of your space. You don't even see their avatar. I like the controls in alt space a lot. Meta Horizons, I haven't dove into a whole lot. It's more Facebook's kind of space. Big screen is pretty fun. Correct me if I'm wrong. Big screen, a lot of the rooms are, I think all of them are limited to 15 people. Is that right? Or are there bigger spaces? There are
bigger spaces than 15 for big screen. I've seen some that go up to a couple hundred. What I would say is big screen it's kind of a limited version of virtual reality. Like it's not you don't have these immersive worlds and near the world building. But I've seen churches be incredibly successful with it. Really what big screen is it's like the equivalent of Netflix on virtual reality. And so
it's a movie theater.
It's a movie theater. And so you can broadcast. And there's Calvary Chapel, Fort Lauderdale. It's just maybe an hour up north of me. They've seen over 200 people come to Christ in virtual reality through big screen. Calvary's got an incredible video product they produce. Tons of effort goes into it. And basically, they just stream their video content in. Now, but they also, in addition to that, they're doing alpha in virtual reality, same way, streaming the content in. They're doing I think they're doing some form of Christ-centered recovery in virtual reality. I know they were talking about that. I'm not sure if it started yet, but they're doing, I think, 3 to 4 different nights worth of virtual reality content in big screen. So they've created a community centered around that. It's funny, they're actually the exception to the rule. I've actually seen more success with like the pastor preaching in avatar form, being more relational and engaging. But a couple of these churches that really have solid video product, like if you've got one camera in the back on a wide shot, you don't have solid video product. But if you've got a switcher, I mean, they've got cranes and dollies and all sorts of stuff. If you got a solid video product, big screen might be a good option for you to experiment.
But why would I do that? Why would I put on the headset and go into big screen and sit in a movie theater and watch a screen when I can just pull it up on my computer? Why is that appealing?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. There is a level of shared community in a big screen world.
I guess so. You can talk to people while the thing is on the screen.
And so it's an avatar version of, watching the Disney Plus movie with your friends, and something like that, I have friends that travel and then they put the headset on and they watch, like a friend of mine's in England, the husband and wife, and husband travels for work and they watch Netflix together and they're just, in each other's ears talking, watching the movie. Interestingly, Apple's working on this technology through augmented reality, where an Apple TV, where things are like projected on the walls. So even like the shared experience, which is really the key of anything in MetaVerse, it's creating these shared experiences where we can build relationships, and through those relationships point to Jesus. Here's what I know, Carl, is that when we look at the people we're doing ministry with in virtual reality, I have yet to meet the person who told me, I was just lazy, didn't feel like going to physical church on Sunday, so I jumped in virtual reality. What I'm actually hearing is like Jason Poling talking about how there is like 1% to 2% actually understanding who Jesus is in VR chat. 80 to 90% atheists or agnostics attending a church service through DJ Soto's VR church. Right. Like we're reaching, we're engaging, we're talking with people that would not go anywhere near a building. And so it's actually an incredible opportunity to provide them safe space to dialogue. I can tell you stories of Satanists and neo-pagans who are finding Jesus in virtual reality, of people that haven't been to a church in a decade are finally understanding who Jesus is in this space. And so the ministry, the missional opportunities of using this technology is incredible.
It really is interesting how they would go into alt space and choose VR Church as an event and enter it, because you have to. It is a choice. You have to enter that space where they might not go to a physical building. Very interesting. All right, so let's talk about that avatar teaching more, because I like that. And what I've experienced, I like that a lot better. That holds my attention better, to have an avatar, and DJ does this, an avatar preaching. Not only that, but going to different spaces in the world. So what DJ does, and you know this, it has a volunteer team that creates a world to where there are environments that they can interact with based on his teaching. So if he's talking about, Jesus healing the sick, there is a Jesus character there with, a lame person on a bed, or he can talk about, Noah, and he goes out and there's huge water and a ship and all this. And so what I like about that is, hey guys, come over here, move your avatar over here. We're going to go into this building and we're going to talk about this. Now we're going to go outside and we're going to talk by the water. And it's very, very immersive and very engaging. So talk to me about that versus, a live stream pumped in.
Oh,
What's
yeah. There is so much more creativity centered around virtual reality and what can be. Probably, I know the stuff that DJ's doing, and another leader in this is going to be VR Tiger, and he enables two guys that run Oasis Church VR. And what I love about Oasis Church is they're a little more aggressive than DJ, and I'm not actually sure how they do this, but they launch a new world every week. And so the guy is VR Tiger is actually preaching through the Old Testament. And so I think one of the first services I saw of his was he had actually built the tabernacle in virtual reality. And he was preaching his sermon, walking the tabernacle. And we were able to do Q&A in sections of the tabernacle. They took me through their world once of walking the separating of the Red Sea, Moses walking across the bottom. And there's literally, like, the virtual reality waves are crashing over you and you're seeing it happen. And he's telling me stories of where, like, people are literally just breaking down crying at the power and the awe of what's happening. We're able to, yes, in a cartoony, in a vector, in a more of an 16-bit technology, but we're able to recreate these experiences visually, in ways that moves beyond the typical live teaching or even video teaching. Yeah. And so that, from an engagement standpoint, we're seeing far more success in the verbal communication than we are in the video. Looking at people that are coming in, that are cold to Christ, that are wanting to ask questions, the virtual environment is much more sticky than, as a general rule, than the video is. And it's interesting, like, we're even seeing some of that with what Life Church has done, pivoting away from alt space, which, once again, Life Church is a very strong video product, and they're pivoting it away from alt space into
big screen.
Into big screen, because big screen is better suited for the video strong product. And that wasn't when Life Church wants to do. They don't want to create these immersive worlds and all this stuff. They just want to retask the video product that they have. And so they chose, in my opinion, the right play for that, because if it's going to work anywhere, what they want to do is going to work in big screen, where we really need people. I mean, listen, you want to be a church in virtual reality. Here's what I would love for you to do. Go download Altspace or because it's the safe world. Nobody's going to hurt you. Nobody's going to scare you. There's parental controls. Go find a campfire in Altspace. There's lots of them. Campfires exist to sit down and meet someone new. You will literally walk up to a complete stranger and just have a conversation. Talk about Jesus. Don't talk about Jesus. Talk about the weather. Talk about your kids. Talk about whatever. See what it's like to actually converse with someone and build a relationship. Because if you want to be successful in virtual reality, that's it. You are engaging with people that are in the platform for the most part to have community. And so they want to have conversations with you. Take advantage of that. Yes, share Jesus, but don't be the soapbox pastor on the side of the road. Like, actually build a relationship with someone. That's actually book 2, Carl. You're going to bring me back on in about 4 months when that book comes out, because we're going to talk about what evangelism looks like in virtual reality and as well as digital. So fun stuff.
Awesome. Okay, so let's talk about some of the critiques. So obviously, people will mention how do we do music? How do we do prayer? How do we do the sacraments? You want to walk through some of those things? How do we do we talked about some of the creative elements. Music is one of those things. Just kind of walk me through some of those creative elements or sacraments.
Yeah, I mean, what these innovators, these pioneers, these men and women are doing is they're just reimagining what the church can be. Interestingly, a physical church and a virtual reality church are very similar, at least the way that virtual reality church is operating today, compared to like what a physical church was in COVID and what people were doing at home. A digital church can look completely different from an ecclesiological, from a biblical function standpoint. But, most of these churches, Cornerstone, they're doing some sort of a communion. They're doing some sort of a baptism in virtual reality. People are eating physical elements for the communion at the same time as they're doing the virtual. Interesting, in baptism, there was a girl that was actually baptized in virtual reality. And in the church, through Cornerstone, the church challenged her to go get baptized in physical. And so she went and found a physical church and sat down with, I think, the lead pastor, one of the pastors of the church. And after talking with her about what the virtual reality baptism meant to her, the pastor said to her, "You don't need to get rebaptized. What you did was good enough." Now, some people would agree with that. Some people don't. Some people want to tar and feather me just at the suggestion of that. So, what they're really doing here is reimagining the ecclesiology, not moving away from the scriptures. As a matter of fact, I think we're actually moving closer to scripture in some ways, getting to reimagine gathering together daily and utilizing tools like Discord to tighten a relationship together 24/7, 365. So it's all about thinking through what's possible, looking at the technology that's available.
Is it better? I'm going to hit you with a couple more, and then I'm going to hit you with some rapid fire.
Yep.
Okay. So is it better to have more smaller churches in VR than huge mega churches?
I would say
I haven't really seen
huge
mega churches, honestly, in VR.
Well, the technology itself, there is a limit to this. I don't you're not going to get 1,000 people in one space. Maybe Meta figures that out, but but I would always say smaller. Because I think smaller allows for more contextualization. I would rather have 100,000 churches of 10 rather than 1 million person church. I think when you get that big, relationships are hard. It's hard to be agile. It's hard to adapt. And Seth Godin, marketing, you're a marketing guy, Carl, you know this. Seth Godin was once asked how to get your message heard around the world. And essentially Seth responded, it's better to craft a message specifically for someone, get that person to hear it, understand it, get them to tell someone else. Like the future church, I believe, is going to look much more smaller and agile than Mega and Giga. The Mega and Gigas always be around. I just think it's going to be harder and harder for them to operate, or at least to connect with new people moving forward.
Which is funny because the mentality is in a Mega is how do we do small groups well? Like how do we make it a smaller? Which I think is interesting. Okay, so what do you say to the naysayers of church in VR, and why should we be paying more attention to what's going on and not dismiss it so quickly?
Yeah, it's listen, I've probably received 10x more hate centered around virtual reality church than any of the other crazy stuff I talk about. So I can appreciate the difficulties. I can appreciate their concerns.
Yeah.
What I'm seeing from the people that are in this space is that they are incredibly respectful of biblical mandates, in that they are experimenting and exploring, and they're trying something different. I, for one, I would rather support the people that are trying to do something different than go back to what was working or what was perceived to be working in January 2020 before COVID hit.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would say, let's encourage these people, because they are, I mean, this is documented. The people they're reaching are not the people that the buildings are reaching. And so by doing something different, we're reaching someone different. And to that end, this is why I would love to help as many churches get in the space as possible, understand the prerequisite of VR that's going to equip you better to handle augmented, that's going to help you understand the metaverse of where we're going. This is, I mean, arguably one of the greatest mission fields in America today, if not beyond. And for us to take advantage of this, understand even disciple making and multiplication in this space, and start to really help people understand what God has called them to be. I mean, this is a huge opportunity for churches, and to blow it off and ignore it because it doesn't fit within your, what's interesting is a lot of the theology. If you really dig into what people don't like about virtual reality, and I showed this in the book, there's two things. One, either physical church is guilty of the exact same thing, people aren't acknowledging it, or two, the theology is very weak centered around that, and it almost gets into opinions or extra biblical. Where does it actually say that in the Bible? It's funny. The verse that people are most likely to say to me why virtual reality is bad is the "do not abandon the gathering of those called." And what's interesting is the people that the ardent followers of virtual reality will quote the exact same verse to me to say this is why it works. And so it's like right. It's not that we don't understand the Bible, it's that we're interpreting it to mean different things. And
I think those naysayers haven't been in the spaces, I would guess, because it is community. You are meeting people. I would encourage them to try it and do it and see if they have the same argument. All right, rapid fire lightning round before I leave you. Ready?
Yep.
Number one, what is your favorite game to play in VR?
I am, man, I love the Vader. What's the Vader game?
Yeah, Immortal.
I am all about the Vader stuff. I'm a Star Wars guy, and so just did the Star Wars with the world from the Disney thing. I'm trying to get. I put the Iron Man game on my Christmas list, so I'm hoping that comes in.
Yeah, it does look good. So you're not a Beat Saber guy?
Man, that's too much work. I'm like old, man. I can't handle that stuff. My kids play Beat Saber, and I watch them do that. I played some Pop 1 as well. Yeah, good.
All right, number two. What church in the metaverse do you think is being the most intentional about reaching people in VR?
Ooh, that's a hard one. I'll go with Goose, my friend Goose and J-Po over at Cornerstone. They're being very intentional about multiplying it into worlds. And so I love what they're doing. Lakeland VR is another physical church that's doing virtual. And I'm close to my friend Stuart there. The road that they're on is very exciting. I mean, all these guys are doing great stuff. But if we're talking about intentional and talking about multiplication, those two churches are a step above.
Man, Lakeland, I was just there just a couple of days ago, and they have a whole city that you kind of go down, and I mean, the world is amazing.
Yeah, we built that world. I don't know if you know that.
Did you?
Goose and I worked together. I mean,
dude, it's amazing.
Me, but
great job.
It's fun stuff.
Really good. All right, number three. What is the first thing a pastor or church is who's considering a metaverse campus? What should they do to get started? I think you answered this.
Yeah. I mean, listen, if you're going to plant a church anywhere in physical space, one of the first things you're going to do is you're going to travel there, you're going to walk around, you're going to meet some people, you're going to prayer walk virtual reality. Many of the ways that we talk about these worlds is the same way that somebody would talk about their neighborhood or their city. And so the calling that I would issue on you is, can you look at AltSpace VR? Can you look at VR chat? Can you look at big screen the same way a physical planter would look at their town or their city or their neighborhood? And start to meet those people, pray for those people, prayer walk virtual reality, and see where God leads you. It's hard to be like prayer walk Beat Saber. But it's almost what I'm suggesting is start to really dive into the different worlds there and see where God's leading you prayerfully.
Yeah. So Beat Saber, I guess for people who don't know, is it's like a Guitar Hero or Rock Band in virtual reality with lightsabers. Yeah. I mean, yep. Okay, it's pretty cool. All right. What are some of the first? Do you recommend a headset? And what are some of the first apps I should download when I first get a headset?
Yeah, I mean, you've got the Meta Oculus 2 or whatever they're calling it now. That's probably the cheapest option that is stable. And so I think you're probably paying $350 plus or minus for that now.
Yep.
Facebook just came out with another one that's $1,800. Apple's rumored to have one coming out early next year that'll probably be around $2,000. I don't know that the beginner user needs to invest into that. I will be investing into Apple's when it comes out. And so I'll let you know what that is. And what I'd say is, when you get a new phone, you just go on the App Store and you just download a bunch of it's the same thing. It's the same, App Store mentality. Get some free versions, get some demos, explore it. Beat Saber's a solid option to get started. Pop One is the equivalent of Fortnite. Really just find the stuff that fits your characteristic. From virtual worlds, download AltSpace. Download AltSpace and force yourself. It might be uncomfortable, especially if you're like the closet. Not my mind just blanked on the word.
Like a silent, not talking.
Yeah. If you're the silent guy, you may have to force yourself to go have a conversation, but have a conversation. Meet somebody. People go into virtual reality to talk. And so take advantage of that. Go into meet up somebody in one of these AltSpace worlds and start a conversation. See what happens.
Good. All right, last one for you. What has blown you away the most when exploring VR you never expected? Has just blown you away?
Yeah, the collaboration among the churches and the ministries in this space is unlike anything I've ever seen in physical. Like the cooperation, the support, the admiration between the pastors, the churches, the volunteers, the MetaVerse missionaries. It's if the physical church could pull anything from virtual reality, the physical church would be changed if they had the collaboration that the virtual reality church had. It would be night and day. I think revival would come because we would be working together at that level. It's unbelievable.
Good. Well, the book is free, right? I can pick it up anywhere. Tell us how we can get it.
Yeah, so it's at I'll do it this one. thechurch.digital/VR book. thechurch.digital/VR book. It is on Amazon. You can buy the paperback or you can buy the Kindle. But you know what? We just really wanted to get these ideas out. And so Leadership Network and Exponential, they published the book and the PDF for free. And so you can download the entire book, no edits, no shortened version, the full version in PDF form. And if you go to that link, thechurch.digital/VR book, you can download it there for free.
Awesome. Jeff, always a pleasure, man. Thank you for these ideas and for your time, man. Really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Carl.
Hey, guys, I'm hanging out with one of our awesome video producers, Ryan McMacken. Ryan, give me your why. Why do you love serving the church through your work? You do a lot of motion graphics, video work for us. Why do you love doing it?
Carl, what I really enjoy the most is being able to serve a broader network of churches than what I can as a staff member. I've been in ministry, I've been on staff at churches for the better part of 20 years. But what's so cool about getting to work at a place like 1230 is that we get to see things, we get to see the church on a global scale. We get to be involved with churches that are all around the country, all around the world. And so getting to see, your work impacting adults, students, children from various countries even is just a blessing. It's such a cool way, I think, to serve the church, and for other churches, especially smaller churches, to be able to have, to be able to tap into the resources that previously were really only available to large churches. I think that's what I most enjoy.
Yeah, one thing on that I found really cool as we've been doing it. So we started in 2015. So one thing that I've seen is how the Holy Spirit works with pastors, or plants the same thing in pastors and ministries at the same time. Mm-hmm. That they don't know that church down the road over here, or in this other state, this other country even,
right?
We're all doing Armor of God at the same time. Or, right. Something like that. We're all doing one book of the Bible or one topic at one time. And it's very interesting to see that as it comes into us, that like, oh, there's another Armor of God. Oh, there's another. Right. And no one knows. They haven't started their series yet. No one knows that they're doing it. But it's just interesting to watch the Holy Spirit do that sort of thing too, man. Man, thank you so much for your heart. Really just appreciate your work. Appreciate how you serve the team and how you serve the church.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
The show notes for this episode are available now at makingsundayhappen.com.
Well, I hope you guys learned a lot from my conversation with Jeff today. VR Church is not for every church, but we don't need to put our head in the sand. We don't need to ignore it either. This is a viable path for some people who would never, ever enter the doors of a physical church to experience Jesus. So don't write it off too quickly. This might not be for your church, and that's okay. Maybe your people are just not there yet. That's fine. But I would highly encourage you not to write it off, not to think of it as silly or a gaming thing or anything like that. I would see it as a viable option for some people to meet Jesus in a new space, just like social media, just like a website, just like church online. We're growing into the next step of technology. So don't write it off. Be on the lookout for it, because more and more things are going to come out in virtual reality. All right, Jeff's book is available for free, VR and the MetaVerse Church. I don't know how they're doing it for free. There's some backing here by the teams and ministries that Jeff works for to make it available for free to everyone. So I would absolutely pick up this book. It's available now at leadnet.org/VR book. That's lead, L-E-A-D, leadnet.org/VR book. Great book. Feel free to pick it up today. All right, next week on the show, I'll welcome Michelle Barnett. Michelle is the Director of Church Planting Assessment for the North American Mission Board. She was in this position. She was one of the first and youngest female senior directors ever for NAM. But today she helps oversee the Leadership Accelerator training at the Multiply Group. I had my friend Mac Lake on a few weeks ago, who oversees the Multiply Group. Michelle works with Mac at the Multiply Group. She helps leaders. Their whole team helps leaders be better leaders. So we're going to be talking about how to motivate and empower your Sunday team. How you as a leader can not just be a leader, but lead disciple makers. Okay? It's going to be a great episode on leadership next week. We'll go out there and create some incredible worship experiences at your church this weekend. Go make Sunday happen. I'll see you next week.
Making Sunday Happen is a production of the ministry of 1230 Media. For show notes, archive episodes, and more free resources for your church, visit makingsundayhappen.com.